Right. As I said, my name is Paul Heineman, and I'm your Master of Ceremonies today for part 2 of the ITAM webinar series, From Data to Decisions, Transforming ITAM with ServiceNow AI. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us here today. As I said, this is the second in a series of ITAM webinars that Coreio is putting on. And we've got a great action-packed agenda for today. We have a very special guest speaker here from ServiceNow, who's agreed to join us and kind of take us through the ServiceNow story as it relates to ITAM and what the ServiceNow AI will deliver for you, whether that be immediately or on into the not too distant future. Without a doubt, AI, our AI is an acronym that's on the tip of everybody's tongue. Certainly trying to understand what AI will deliver for you and for your organization is always a significant question that people that we speak to each and every day are asking, and we're here in an effort to try and help paint a picture such that you can appreciate what ServiceNow will be able to do for you in that space. So from an agenda standpoint, I'm going to do a quick introduction of my fellow panelists here, and then I'm going to pass it right over to Brad from ServiceNow. Probably about 40 minutes or so in terms of presentation and content. Again, action-packed, lots of great details. And then we're going to cut to a question and answer period and a quick wrap-up to talk about what we've got in store for our next webinar. So again, I said that I had a couple of other panelists with me here. Steve Mifsud, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and our special guest speaker from ServiceNow, friend, former colleague, and trusted partner, Brad Diamond, who's the Field CTO and Senior Executive Enterprise Architect with ServiceNow. Just a couple of quick things from a logistical perspective or a rules standpoint. Just wanted to confirm that everybody is indeed going to be muted for the entirety of the webinar, and the key there is just to kind of keep the flow. We obviously encourage you to ask as many questions as you may have relative to the content, and we would ask you to put those in the Q&A, please, and those will be vetted and filtered through to Brad to obviously get the answers to the burning questions that you have. So without any further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Brad. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks very much, Paul, and good afternoon, everybody. I do have a bit of a safe harbor notice. Those of you who are already on the platform, you've probably seen this before, but just in case we're talking about any future capabilities that are not yet available in the platform, do need to have that out there just to make sure we don't make any decisions based on things that may or may not make it into the product eventually. But nonetheless, we are here to talk about asset management today. So I'm going to primarily focus on software and hardware asset management. There are other elements to asset management, yes, but really the key focus is the hardware and the software pieces. I wanted to start the conversation off, again, just to level set with everybody on the call, making sure that we're all talking about the same things. And from a hardware and software asset management perspective, right, it's really important to make sure we sort of have, this is a great perspective to look at where they sit. And obviously, there's a lot of capability within the products themselves, but the fact that they sit on top of, our service operations capabilities, enterprise architecture, strategic portfolio management, security operations, risk management, procurement, all of these things relate to the software and hardware asset management capabilities. And we're going to talk about that a little more in depth as we get through some of the content today. But again, just how the platform is designed. Again, we're leveraging that common data model, one single platform, one data model, one architecture, and then leveraging the relationships between all these great capabilities. And obviously, we're using predictive AI, generative AI to amplify everything that we do. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, when we're talking about software asset management, three key things we need to realize what we're trying to do with this is making sure that we're consolidating our software that's being used, automating how we're managing that through the tech lifecycle, and optimizing our costs and mitigating risk, maximizing our return on all the investments we're making from a software perspective, okay? And this is going to help, again, we look at some of the benefits from software, right? Optimizing our investments, making sure that we're using our assets as effectively and efficiently as possible. Improving the efficiencies, right? making sure we're normalizing the data. We've got ways to help with onboarding and offboarding, making sure that we're using, generative AI with the virtual agent to integrate with requests and showing our progress through our success portals. Obviously, reducing risk, right? We want to minimize that software exposure, right? Understanding where are the risks in the organization? What are the outages potentially from vulnerabilities? Let's make sure that we minimize that as much as possible. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we've got a great experience. And this is part of, bringing those new hires on day one, making sure they have all the software that they need. That's a huge aspect from a productivity perspective. So again, a lot of things that we do with software asset management, that is not what the focus of today is all about. Again, just some of this stuff I want to get up front just to level set, making sure we understand what are the products all about if we're not using them in our organizations today. When we're looking at hardware asset management, right, what are some of the main challenges, right? We have lack of visibility into the full hardware estate. We need to optimize costs, right? We need to make sure that we're showing an ROI and decreasing the waste that we have throughout the entire organization. We have a risk of non-compliance due to data inaccuracy and poor governance of our hardware data, missing coordination between various departments or teams, and most often, no understanding of the environmental impact of the assets that are in use. So again, when we look at some of the benefits here, right, obviously a big gain from a cost takeout, right, increasing that hardware asset life cycle from through better control of our assets, visibility into inventory, making sure that we're minimizing asset loss by understanding better our audits, mobile asset receiving, asset reservations, tracking, etc. Operational efficiency, so increasing that hardware asset manager efficiency with asset lifecycle information, which is including automated audits, asset information databases, dashboards, and more information at the fingertips of those people who need it. Risk mitigation. Again, you're going to see risk coming everywhere, right? We need visibility into asset lifecycle activities so we can take action on assets that have potentially missed maintenance or their end of life, and they may cause other issues, which is going to have pose risks for the stability of the services that they are providing or end user capabilities. And then lastly, experience, right? We want to make sure that we're improving hardware asset availability to new hires by sourcing, assigning, and deploying those assets in a seamless manner, but also accelerating hardware request lifecycle times with prescriptive workflows and automated asset records. So really, this is increasingly become a strategic business priority to manage our hardware assets more effectively.
Right.
Okay.
I'll interject on that slide if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Steve, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so I think it's important to really highlight the types of savings that there are. And really, you look at the bottom two, the 25% and 50%, those are non-quantifiable savings. Savings that are sometimes hard to realize or actually generate savings. The 35% is more of a cost avoidance. You're improving efficiency of the assets you have, you've already spent on it. But the biggest one there, which is the biggest impact, is 65% of cost savings, true cost savings, reducing the amount of rogue assets or non-utilized assets. So that's where the most of the value is, and that's where the biggest percentage is. So take advantage.
Absolutely, those rogue assets. I mean, people move from department A to department B, or somebody gets offboarded and the laptop goes into the manager's desk. I mean, Steve, I think years ago you and I did some analysis on some of these numbers, how many percentage of moves an average organization has in a typical month, and then what does that ultimately equate to? And then you can do the calculations on how much a typical organization can save just from all the move, add, and changes from an organizational perspective if we do it properly, right?
Correct. We have that info.
Okay. So I want to now shift to talk a little bit about AI agents. So again, AI conversation that we've been having in the ServiceNow ecosystem for a long time now. And for those, not overly familiar, AI actually has a pretty long history in our platform, probably going on 9 years now when we talk about our total AI investment. And I'm just realized I could have thrown a little timeline in here, but anyways, it all started with our research and our innovations around machine learning. Machine learning was really the first form of artificial intelligence we put in the platform, and that was around, I want to say, around the New York release, somewhere in that timeline, and then throughout, we've been increasing some of that capability to where we're at today with generative AI. And this is where we're going to get into, I'm going to explain the AI agent architecture in a moment, but I just want to sort of talk about the step up into that. And it was really machine learning leading to generative AI, which very quickly turned into agentic AI. And so that's what we're going to talk about right now. And then we'll show how we're using some of this agentic AI in the platform. So when we look at our agentic AI from an architectural perspective, it's important to start with the why. What's the business problem that we're trying to solve, right? What is this agent AI agent supposed to do? What is the use case that we're looking to solve for? And then that's where we'll start the process. And now we'll start to figure out the how. And this is where our AI agent orchestrator is a differentiator in the agentic AI space. This is not actually the AI agent who is doing the work, but rather we have a dedicated AI agent orchestrator that's going to conduct the planning and determine what AI agents actually need to be used in order to solve against this particular agentic workflow. And so that orchestrator will then reach out and assemble a team of AI agents. Now, the AI agents, these are the who, and these are the virtual workers that are going to perform those specific tasks, right? And each of the AI agents that we build in our platform, they are armed with, for lack of a better term, tools. How are they going to, this is how they're going to do the what, right? This is how they're going to execute their tasks. So every AI agent that's built in the ServiceNow platform is skilled at doing one particular thing. So it's not like we have to have a multi-purpose AI agent, because as soon as we do multi-purpose AI agent, guess what? They're not going to be an expert in any one of those things, and now we're open to some errors. So this is why AI agents in the ServiceNow platform have the specific skill that they are designed to have, the specific tools they're going to have access to execute those skills, and this allows them to perform that at a very, very skilled rate. And so this is basically the overall architecture of our agentic AI within the platform. So if you didn't understand it before, hopefully this helps shed some light into how we do it. So again, with the platform, with all our products, we will be shipping with many AI agents depending on the product. But if you are leveraging Now Assist, you also have what's called the Now Assist Skill Kit, which allows you to build your own AI agents and define what tools they're going to have access to solve the problems that you are defining that are unique to your organization that we haven't put in the product yet. So our first theme is enhancing the user experience. So the idea here is to make our software easier to use, more intuitive, and more efficient. This includes improving our interfaces and streamlining workflows, clear insights, and giving you more robust tools to help manage your software assets effectively. So what we've done with Now Assist for SAM, this publisher compliance summary, is we're bringing AI-driven insights into software asset management, providing a high-level compliance overview with drill-down capabilities for faster decision-making. Right, so this is one of our first Now Assist features for software asset management and represents the start of a growing list of AI features for SAM customers. And frankly, this is going to be a bit of a game changer for day one. This is going to really help make sure that we're getting those outcomes fast. So I'm going to show you a little more information here. This is kind of a little bit more what it looks like. And again, what this is going to do is, give you actionable summary on software publishers, give you insights across your software inventory, your configuration health, your license compliance, right? It's going to help simplify complex licensing rules, enabling you to understand your compliance requirements and take the necessary actions to mitigate risk and optimize spend. Giving you the ability to make data-driven decisions for better software publisher outcomes. Now, the thing with software asset management is you have so much data. And this is where agentic AI really comes into place, is we don't have to go through and sift through that data manually anymore. Now we're using AI to do it. So when we think about, how SAM managers are complying with all the contracts and licensing terms to mitigate risk for your estate, right? It's difficult to understand all the compliance requirements. What steps do you need to take to reduce your risk and optimize the spend? And, the ease of access that SAM managers need for different modules to gather insights on your entire software estate. This is a challenge. So this is where we're leveraging Gen AI to publish those insights across your entire software inventory. And now we can do it in a fraction of the time and just surface the information that's required for the humans to take action upon. Okay. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about a hardware asset management capability. And this is where you can help manage asset requests. And that's sort of a new AI agent that we built to accelerate request fulfillment time from sourcing through to procurement. Okay. And really, when we look at it, hardware asset managers are often dealing with a large volume of hardware asset requests that can quickly turn into a backlog of mundane fulfillment requests. So clearing this backlog can be very time consuming, really whittle down on HAM managers' valuable time that could be spent on higher value activities instead. So what we really wanted to do is help manage asset requests and bring those AI agents to help asset managers fulfill these requests more efficiently. This workflow is going to improve overall experience in managing large volumes of hardware requests and accelerate the request fulfillment time thanks to AI agents assisting the fulfillers. This improves productivity and enables HAM managers to focus, again, on more high-value activities. So we can see the theme here. Some of these initial AI capabilities for both HAM and SAM, going through the data, large volumes of data, and helping make it faster for the humans, us, to do the work that we need to be focusing on. Okay. Sorry, Steve, did you have an insight?
Yeah, I did actually, Brad. I was going to comment here, and this is actually something that came up in our previous webinar as well, is, building your request process to facilitate your asset management is critical. The transferring, the onboarding, the procurement, the decommissioning of hardware. Like if you create the service requests for those, first of all, it's a great audit trail to be able to see everything that you're doing, but it's also enable you now for automation and AI capabilities as you start to bring those on. So that foundational of having the service request to do your fulfillment is critical for your success down the road.
Absolutely. And just to layer onto that, Steve, out of the box with Hardware Asset Management Professional are a number of these workflows. And I really recommend, taking those core workflows and leveraging them as much as possible as they are. This goes along with, a common theme when I talk about tech debt in the platform. Don't customize the platform. Leverage as much out of the box as you can, because the more out of the box you consume, the better it's going to integrate with other parts of the platform and other products on the platform, which is ironically what we're going to sort of talk a little bit about now. I want to talk about, combined capabilities of the asset management products with our portfolio products. You can really better automate all the processes in managing the life cycle of your assets as it pertains to your business application. So when we look at, you're establishing goals as an organization and you're establishing your strategy, well, we may want to set some optimization goals and targets as a part of that as well. When we look to consolidate, right, understanding from an enterprise architecture perspective, right, what's the single source of hardware and software? That's going to be ServiceNow. Now, how do we use this to, consolidate duplicative technology that exists out there and really streamline what we're using? And again, with our enterprise architecture and asset management, we can analyze the data and recommend optimization candidates for, again, where we have duplication to provide the same capabilities in the organization. So again, you can see similarly when we look to, prioritize. So when we're looking at our demand backlog in strategic portfolio management, understanding what programs and projects we want to start to action upon, well, this may have relevance to some of the assets that underpin those services as well. And again, when we start to actually build that out, this is all going to be part of our execute phase. Again, looking at the assets as it pertains to our architecture and our strategy. And then lastly, tracking the progress and updating our outcomes from a strategy perspective. How are we delivering on some of those strategies that we have defined within strategic portfolio management? Taking another little lens at this, how the CMDB really and the asset lifecycle really integrates with other processes now from a lifecycle perspective of, I need to request an asset. Well, that's where asset management is really working with IT service management, because ultimately IT service management, as Steve was talking about before, It's managing the service catalog, right? Do we have all those catalog items for people to need to order new hardware or new software as part of my role, or maybe if I'm onboarding somebody? And then now when we're fulfilling, right, this is in relation to our onboarding. So there's a tight correlation here with our HR service delivery product stack. And again, where do we go to from a fulfillment to a deployment? We're actually going to implement that hardware or implement that software. Again, this is ITSM doing the fulfillment part of the catalog request we made before. Now, when we're monitoring those assets, well, this is purely ITOM, right? From a discovery perspective, are we able to see those assets? From an event management perspective, are any of those assets malfunctioning? What other alerts are being sent from those assets in the field as they're operationalized as a CI? So that's our integration with ITOM. And again, we can now bridge it from a risk perspective. Are there any alerts that are of concern? Are there anything that's happening in the environment that's putting my services at risk? Or are there any vulnerabilities from a SecOps perspective that are, again, introducing risk to the environment? Maybe it's vulnerable software that we're aware of that we know we've got running in 15 different services, or there's a piece of software that's end of life, or a piece of hardware that's end of life, and therefore incurring risk to the environment. So again, SecOps and risk, those interconnections there. Now we need to service that. So again, that'll happen through ITSM. And then, lastly, when we look at enterprise architecture, this is where we're going to make decisions on, is this technology we need to retire because it's now end of life and we need to invest in a different set of technology to provide us with the capabilities that we need for the underpinning services. So again, you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different products, all very tightly coupled with asset management as it pertains to the asset lifecycle. I was just talking with one of my colleagues this morning, actually, about this very conversation, just how asset management really underpins and has tight relationships with so many other capabilities in the platform. It's really important to make sure we understand how critical those relationships are and making sure they stay healthy.
So one of the statements I was going to add here, because always when we're talking to customers, and even being in the business myself as a product owner, there's always a misconception between CMDB and asset management.
Yes.
Right. And this whole life cycle of an asset is really truly managed in the asset management repository for HAM. I think it's important to have a CMDB, and you can see that right at the bottom of the monitor, is to reconcile your assets as they're created in the CMDB and they're created in your asset repository as you order assets. But the reconciliation process is critical there for the CMDB driven workflows. So that's where you get the true value of CMDB and an asset repository together.
Absolutely. And as I like to always say is, right, the asset is there's a piece of that's the financial record. The CI is really the operational. So as you were talking about, right, when we're in the monitor, that's when that asset is in the operational state. Now it's the operational version, the configuration item as it exists. But ultimately the asset is the wrapper all around the CI, and they both play such a tight. They have such a tight relationship with each other, and they're both critical pieces to understand.
I totally agree, Brad. I was going to add one more comment. If there are any questions that you have, please submit them in the Q&A section so we can answer them as soon as we're done our presentation. Go ahead. Thank you.
Great. So now I want to talk a little bit about, we're talking about better together stories, and I want to mention something that's currently in our innovation lab. And so what does our innovation lab mean? So the ServiceNow Innovation Lab is focused on sharing applications that we've created internally that deliver value on the platform. The lab focuses on quickly releasing early-stage experimental projects to our customers without compromising the customer experience or security. So customers can use the new features in their ServiceNow instances with their own data and provide feedback for further improvement. So what I would say is, if any of this is interest, then please, we could reach out to your account executive and we can figure out how to get access to this. So this example here is combining software asset management with vulnerability response. And helping to find vulnerable end-of-life software reporting. So this is, again, enhancing the software lifecycle reports by integrating those vulnerability insights and helping to identify and address security risks before they become costly issues. So again, this is helping improve security and compliance by giving more insights We've added additional fields to the software lifecycle report so that we can highlight some of these vulnerabilities, right? We've given identification of those exploitable vulnerabilities. And obviously, this is going to help avoid financial repercussions by addressing these vulnerabilities early, understanding when your end of life is, and then now we can reduce risk like data loss and potentially regulatory fines as well. So again, customers are welcome to test this feature in the Innovation Lab. Exposure assessment. So every organization needs to react quickly when there's a vulnerability that can lead to a security breach. When it comes to vulnerability response, it's important to know where software is and what's vulnerable in the software. So this is where the combination of software asset management and vulnerability response management helps. An exposure assessment can be scheduled that leverages normalized software asset data, which in combination with vulnerability remediation workflows automates tasks from assessment through remediation. So really, we've been seeing a lack of accurate and normalized data about software that has vulnerabilities and where it exists in the environment, and slow reactions to remediate those zero-day asset exposures. So this really, it's another example of a better together solution between asset management and security operations, right? This combination, vulnerability response and software asset management, allows you to assess based on your CVEs or normalized software titles to identify the highest priority vulnerabilities and apply vulnerability response workflows to remediate the targeted vulnerabilities. This gives you a faster turnaround time for those zero-day asset exposures. So again, this is, in contrary to the previous thing I showed you, that's really for end-of-life software. This is just looking at everything that exists in your environment. And again, we're leveraging AI here to go through mass amounts of data and surface that quickly. So some of this is going to be more look like agentic AI. Some of this is, again, this is all powered by AI on the back end to make sure that we're surfacing the information that's important to you. So ITAM and risk management, another great proof point for the platform. The more data that ITAM is gathering and normalizing, the more it can be used in other IT and business workflows. In this case, IT risk and security. The challenge of the past is we've got siloed teams that have data related to governance, but applying governance standards like ISO or CIS, they're effectively across the business is really challenging to do. So making sure that we've got compliance data available to you to support your compliance standards for both software and hardware asset data all in one place is really allowing you to make better use of the data in a shorter amount of time. Okay. Now we're going to take a quick look at some AI in action. I've got two videos I'm going to share, and the first one is really talking about software request fulfillment. And what we're going to see here is an asset fulfiller for software requests, and it's going to include, detecting the software name and type, identifying provisioning steps, validating if licenses are available, and then executing those steps to allocate the license to the user, and then getting an email out to make sure that the user is kept aware. And if no license is available, then it's going to create a purchase request. So let's have a look and see some of this in action. Okay, so we have a user, they've started the request. You can see here the agent orchestrator calling on multiple agents to see, is this approved software? Yes. All right, now we're going to call up more agents, right? Call up our licensing agent, and you can see everything happening in real time. And again, this is not the end user view. What you're seeing here is actually what you would see if you're watching the logs, but you can see in real time the orchestrator calling on additional AI agents to understand what licenses are required, assigning licenses to a user, sending the notification to the user. And then guess what? Now you get your confirmation notification email saying that the license is being installed for you and you are ready to go. So when we look at that use case, we can see the number of agents that were actually used in this software request fulfillment workflow, right? We have the request next best agent, action agent, right? Suggesting optimal task resolutions, right? They're referencing the knowledge base, collaborating with users for clarity if needed. What's the tool that was available to that agent? That was the details of the catalog item. The approved software identifier, right? looking at verifying if the requested software is standard or non-standard. So again, the tool here was just a quick check of the software type. So looking at data that we already have available to us. The next one was the standard software process, next best action. So this agent is processing knowledge articles to suggest what are the next steps in order to complete this. And so making sure that we're following the right process for standard software reclamation. We're using a license availability check agent to check for available licenses for the requested software. Are those licenses actually available? So again, going to our entitlement data in the platform and just doing a check. Are there any licenses still available? An AD group license provisioning agent, that's just to add the user to the AD group, right? Taking the user ID and the AD group name to add the user to the group. And again, their tool is just adding to the group. So you can see here, the way that all of these AI agents are designed and constructed, right? If you think back to that architecture slide that I showed you, right? Every agent has a job. They have one job. Think of them no different than all those little yellow minions in Despicable Me, right? Every minion's got its own job. It does one thing. It does it very well. It doesn't have to worry about doing 15 different things, which then can dilute their skill at it. So we're very clear. What does the AI agent do? What's the description? What are the tools that are available to it? Okay. So now we're going to look at a software reclamation process. And this is really to assist a user with software provisioning. And, if the licenses are available, we'll allocate licenses. Otherwise, we'll reclaim them back to our entitlement pool. So let's have a look at that now. So again, you can see this is the log, right? Finding the best way to help. The orchestrator is determining what agents do I need. And it's got the software request next best action agent, right? Looking at the approved software. And again, this is what I'm talking about when I say we have a full logging capability to understand what is the reasoning that's going on as all of these agents are being called. What is it that they're doing? This is all very transparent. And guess what? We actually now need to break out for a minute and go back to the agent to understand, we need a little bit more information before we can proceed. So yes, you know what? We've looked into the information. We said, yes, we need to reclaim that license from this user. And now we are allowing this, again, the human in the loop aspect of this, to allow the AI agent to complete its task. So again, our AI agents, we can set them to be fully autonomous, or we can set them to get direction from humans when we need to. And this is a really important differentiator to make sure that the agents aren't just running wild, and they're still coming to us when they need to. And now you can see at the end of that, we were able to recycle and reuse the software that was entitled from one user to another. So just like we talked about in that first use case, we had a number of different AI agents that were used throughout this entire process. Some of these were similar to the ones that were used before, but there are a few different ones in use here as well, right? Creating a purchase request if we needed to purchase that new license, right? That fetch reclamation candidate list, and understanding where can we potentially reclaim that license from a number of users who are not using licenses in accordance with our policies. So we have a lot of AI agents that we've got as part of this. And again, this is really where imagination is your best friend. Is if we don't have AI agents available out of the box for the use case that you're looking for, this is where the Now Assist skill kit gives you the ability with, again, it's not coding. It's really just some prompt engineering, and you can create your own AI agents for really whatever you can imagine to automate some workflows within the platform. And with that, Steve, I got through things a little quicker than I expected, but we can now look to answer some questions. Oh, you're on mute there, Steve.
Yeah, Brad, I'll start with one question directly. If you don't mind going back a slide, those are all the different AI agents that can be used in this specific process. But
Yes.
realistically, you can add more, you can trim down, you can use one just on its own. Correct.
100%. 100%. So, I put it sort of at the back of this, sort of what do these things look like? And so, again, this is how when we're building an AI agent, maybe I'll flip up to here for a moment, right? So again, when we look at our agentic AI architecture, right? We've got the workflow. What is it we're trying to do? That's just the use case. Ultimately, we may have AI agents that can be used in multiple use cases because they're doing similar things or similar tasks that can be used across the board, much like this, the next best action agent is used in the two example workflows that we talked about here. So this is basically what the design of an AI agent looks like, is we give it a name, we give it an execution mode, right? In this case, this one is fully autonomous. And this is where the agent needs to look through our knowledge articles, understand our service catalog, and try and figure out what's the best action. And so the tool that it's going to have access to scripts. And I'm going to look through here and see if I have, I think, yeah. So here is, the fetch reclamation candidate list. Execution mode here is supervised, right? So this is where this AI agent is trained to understand that I may need input from an end user or an IT agent to get more information and make a determination on how I should proceed. So yes, we can come up with as many different ways to create different AI agents, again, depending on how it's going to help us with that workflow in question.
Perfect.
Perfect. That's great, Brad. Listen, we do have a few questions that have come in from the group. So again, thank you for all those folks that put questions into the Q&A. Brad, first one, where do you recommend starting with AI and ITAM if we're still relying on spreadsheets and disconnected tools?
Well, that's a great question, Paul. And I think that the key word there is if you're still relying on spreadsheets or disconnected tools, then I don't know that necessarily AI is the first step I would take, is at least not from an agentic perspective. I mean, my first step would be, let's get your data and your processes in the platform so that we can start to get some of the machine learning AI in the background working to sort out your data, clean up your data, help you organize and manage your data so that we can make better use of it. And then once you've got that in the platform, again, using HAM, using SAM, we've got the capability to leverage normalization to get it clean and make sure it stays clean as we start to build upon that capability moving forward. Right, is there another question we want to ask?
Yeah, they're coming in fast and feverish now, which is fantastic. So, all right. So, in the software request fulfillment and software reclamation demos, do you need ITOM and SAM, or will IT asset management suffice?
So, IT asset management is actually not on its own. I mean, it's not a product on its own. It's more the category where we're talking about HAM and SAM. Now, some people may say, but hold on a second. Yes, I know where you're going. With IT service management, there are some basic ITAM capabilities, and I'll show it here. This is a slide that I sort of hid. And what you can see, this really shows, where hardware asset management, the product sits on top of the asset management core. So this is the basic functionality with all the ServiceNow products, right? We have basic asset and model records, simple stockroom and mobile features, and foundational purchase order and contract capabilities. But what you're missing out on, the biggest piece here, is this hardware normalization. You do not have that. You do not have the hardware asset workspaces. And the hardware asset workspaces, again, much like we have the same thing in a software asset workspace, this is taking all of the data you've got on your asset inventory and understanding the different roles and personas within that discipline and surfacing the information that those people need to do their jobs on a daily basis. It's already taken the aggregates, figured out all the data you need. Without hardware asset management professional, you don't have that, nor do you have the normalization. So you're going to have multiple copies of data. Your data is not going to be nearly as clean. This is really what you're paying for with the HAM and the SAM, are those content packs that are going to help with the normalization of all the products that you have so you can make better use and better decisions with them. ITOM, Not required. Let me go back and have a quick look just so that I can answer this effectively. I mean, so you do not necessarily need ITOM for parts of this. Where ITOM is really going to help is to get an understanding of what software has actually been installed on an end user computing device, right? Because we'll often leverage ITOM to pull that actual data. Being able to push to an SCCM or some other technology to push the software out onto a platform that doesn't require ITOM, but having the proper inventory of what's actually installed on the device does require data from ITOM. So hopefully that helps clear up some of that detail.
No, that's perfect. All right, so another one that has just come in. What exactly gets deleted during the reallocation process when it states you deleted the allocation record? Will any evidence remain that a user had a license assigned to them before being reallocated?
Yes. So every action in the platform always has an activity log and an audit log. So what will ultimately happen? So if we saw that it said that we deleted the allocation record. Yes, it deleted the allocation from license A from one user and reassigned it to another. When we go into the actual records, it will show that as part of our audit log. So that's always going to, from an evidence perspective, that will always remain as part of the allocation record. So we can pinpoint when the user had it, when it got removed, when it got added to the new user. All that information will be available to us.
Okay, perfect. Now, point of clarification as well, question came in. When setting up new agentic workflows, when are you using skills versus AI agents? We're getting that a little bit mixed up on the best application. So wonder if you could just add some clarity there, Brad.
So an AI agent has to use a skill. So that an AI agent is sort of, maybe I'll let me go back to my right. So when we have that our AI agent, right? Our AI agent is the who, right? What is it? If this is the big box of, we're setting something up, we're configuring something, that AI agent will have a skill, and that is, comprised of how it's going to leverage the tools to do its job. So it's really, we're kind of using different terms that are not the same thing, right? The AI agent is the bigger container. The skill is the more detailed, explanation of how it is performing the task at hand.
I guess, Brad, it's safe to say that every agent would have skills, workflow, and information.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a slide that could show this well. When you go into the Now Assist skill kit, and again, those of you on the phone, if you want to, you can always look this up through our doc site or any other collateral. But when you go to configure the AI agent, there is a list of the skills that it can pull from, right? Is it going to execute, or the tools, right? Is it a workflow? Is it a script? What are the things it's going to use to do its job? And that's really what we're talking about when we talk about the skills.
Okay, perfect. A couple more, Brad. So from the reclamation candidates, would there be any feature, either AI or not, that explain better why someone is a candidate for reclamation? Not only the legend or low usage, which information was taken into account for the calculation. So MECM versus cloud integration versus user table data.
So, I mean, I'm sort of originally was as you were reading that out, Paul, I was going to think about one way to go about it, and then I kind of thought there was maybe a second one. So,
okay,
this depends on what it is we're talking about. Traditional software, this is up to your organization to define what your usage thresholds are for software licenses that people have, right? This may differ in some of your cloud environments, and that's where the fork in my thought process was going. So there may be some prefab sort of decision models in some of the cloud environments, but traditionally what it is you define how long it is that a user can have a piece of software without usage before you look to reclaim it. So I know, for instance, me here at ServiceNow, I have a piece of software that I have installed on my Access, and I hadn't used it for a while. And I got an email from our digital technology team saying, "Hey, Brad, we noticed you haven't used this product in X number of days. Please confirm if you still need it or if we can reharvest the license." And so the way we do it here was I had the choice. It's like, oh, you know what? That was a one-off. It was sort of a gap. I do use it. It just hadn't used it in a while. And I click a button to say keep it. Or it's like, you know what? Yeah, I used to use it. I really don't use it anymore. You can take it back. And I could click that as well. So that came to me in an email, and I had the ability to select it. Now, you may be more prescriptive and just say, hey, you know what? Someone doesn't use Visio in 90 days. I don't care. We're taking it back.
Just keep it
They
back.
can request it again if they still want to use it. So the reality is, it's up to every organization to determine what the thresholds they want, to see whether someone, is a candidate for reclamation. It's going to be based on the rules that you determine, not based on anything that we prescribe. It's up to each organization.
No, that's perfect. That degree of flexibility, obviously, will allow people to take the necessary steps that's most suitable for them. So that's great. I do have one other question here. For ITAM discovery, is there going to be some AI support or agents for software pattern discovery and maintenance of them through version upgrades?
Ooh, that is a great question. And one that I do not necessarily have direct insight to, at least not off the top of my head. That would really require getting more information of the future AI roadmap from the TX team to understand what AI agents they're working on. Now, again, I've AI agents this is the number one innovation that we are working on right now in the platform is cranking out AI agents. So the list potentially changes daily on which ones are on the roadmap. But again, that's a roadmap thing that we would have to talk directly with the product team too. I'm not aware of which ones they are working on, which ones they're prioritizing. It's too hard to keep up. So and there's too many of them. So I don't, it's not something I actively would be aware of because there's literally thousands of them across all of the products on the platform being worked on right now.
No, and obviously it's ever changing and evolving. So certainly it is a challenge to stay on top of all of it. So
Absolutely.
do appreciate your candor there, Brad, in terms of that. Couple more, Brad. Just we've got about 10 minutes left here, so we'll try and get these few in.
Yep.
So what types of asset data need to be cleaned or standardized before AI can actually help?
That's a great question, Paul. And really, when we look at asset data being cleaned or standardized, this is really where, leveraging Ham and Sam Pro become very valuable because as long as you're using those products, right, you are going to be by default using our content library and getting that normalization to happen on your data. That's the biggest, cleansing that we really need for AI to start to do its work. On the flip side of that, I would say also make sure that you're keeping your data models out of the box. Don't try and customize your data models because when we train our LLMs, we're training it on the ServiceNow data model that ships out of the box. It's going to be most accurate when we are leveraging that data because that's what it's trained on. It's going to be harder to understand the nuances if you start customizing your own data models and extending tables in certain ways. So let's leverage things as out of the box as we can, and then we'll naturally have that data that's in a great position to move forward. And again, having all of the data there, right, of making sure we're able to discover it, making sure we're able to load it. These are things that are all going to be very important.
No, and that's great, and obviously not unlike the entirety of the platform itself, customization is maybe not your friend in that circumstance. So that's great feedback.
Well, especially when we look at we're the asset data requires the vulnerability data, which links to our risk data, right? All those interconnections between our products are run native and out of the box. But when you start to customize the data model, that breaks those relationships. And we are never going to be aware of the customizations that you are going to make as a customer. So staying out of the box. And again, we spend a lot of dollars on research and innovation on all the products that we build. we're building them to be best in class
Sure.
for our customers to get value. If you are doing something that's unique, you know, it's you're not transforming how you work unless you change how you work, right? You're going to have outcomes, right? We talk about digital transformation. Everyone talks about digital transformation. Well, in order to do that transformation, you need to change how you work
Right.
to get your outcomes. Your outcomes are your outcomes. I will never dispute those, but I will dispute the how you go about doing your work. And that's why you're paying for a product like ours, to really give you the guidelines on how to go about doing your work, how to access your data, how to manipulate your data in order to achieve those outcomes. So moral of the story, don't customize it. We spend billions of dollars every year to innovate on this platform and make sure that we're giving you what is considered best practice for that discipline.
And that's perfect. And just kind of along that same vein, Brad, last question
Yep.
I'll give you here is, what's the best way to measure ROI when using ServiceNow's AI feature in ITAM?
Oh, well, there's a lot of ways. Well, actually,
That's a loaded question, I realize, but
well, you know what? I think I'm actually going to take a different approach on this.
okay.
If we want to measure ROI on AI in general, we have a capability that we call the AI control tower. And this is really designed because AI is sprawling across every organization. There's certain, Now Assist for us, there's Copilot and Microsoft, right? Everybody's got their own AI that they're providing for their tech stacks. But how do you provide a single pane of glass view on managing all of that AI across your organization? How do you know, are there any risks being introduced by all these AIs? Are you getting value out of these AIs? How are they performing? So that's why we created the AI control tower. It's too bad I didn't think to put a slide in here on that. And this is really to suck in data from every part of your organization, not just ServiceNow, but looking at all of your AI and actually measuring just that. Is your AI deriving value? And then looking to see, how do we go about measuring that? I always talk about, as you're building out capability in the platform, you should always be understanding, as soon as a demand comes in to do something, what's the value this is going to bring to the organization? We should always have KPIs for every workload we put into the platform so that we can measure what's the value that this brings. And if we're doing that, then you can easily measure what value AI is going to bring, because ultimately it's going to reduce your cycle time, it's going to improve your productivity, and you've already got the core KPIs that you can just extrapolate on. But I think the AI control tower actually will even take that to the next level and just cover every AI that you're consuming to provide you with that ROI using the metrics we built into those dashboards.
That's perfect, Brad. And I think I'm sensing a future topic that we can talk about in terms of AI control tower, and ultimately, because you're absolutely right. When you look across the landscape within enterprise organizations, or really any organization that's employing a multitude of different AI capabilities across their tech stack, you're going to need somebody to be the traffic cop to make sure that everything is working in harmony, and that again, there's no exposure, and that you are truly getting the value that comes from it. So,
well, that's just it. I mean, the exposure is such a big thing. AI is still so new. There's so many AI technologies popping up in every organization. How do we keep it all under wraps? We need a concept like the AI control tower where we can feed everything into, so that we get that visibility and nobody's, truly running rogue with AI in one corner of the business that, nobody's really aware of, right?
oh, absolutely. That's absolutely bang on. Well, I see that we've just got a couple of minutes left here, and we've run through the breadth of the questions that were provided. So again, thank you to all the participants for firing in some great questions into the Q&A. Sometimes it's hard to get people to contribute, but excellent questions. So, given the fact that we're so close to the end of our time here, I just wanted to take a couple of quick minutes. First of all, to thank everybody who was in attendance today. Your participation was greatly appreciated. Frankly, that's what makes the value of this webinar series. Obviously, want to say a huge thank you to you, Brad, for bringing in your perspective. You're obviously a lot of places, talking to a lot of people, and that wealth of knowledge that you bring to these sessions. And frankly, we're thrilled to have you, kind of in our corner to be able to talk to and help us kind of traverse this world of AI as it evolves and develops each and every day. So thank you for that. I did on one last thing I wanted to mention is the fact that this webinar is going to be recorded. In fact, it was recorded, so it's going to be available shortly thereafter our session wraps up. So if there are any things that you want to go back and take another look at or have a listen to, by all means, please feel free to do that. As I'd indicated off the top, we are considering what our next topic is going to be for the webinar. We haven't quite decided. We got a couple of beauties that we're looking at. So please stay tuned. And as I said, we'll be reaching out shortly to make you aware of where we go next on this journey of learning and discovery. So Steve, anything you wanted to add just before we go?
No, thank you very much, Brad. And thanks everybody for joining us. See you in the next webinar.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it and look forward to connecting with you soon.